Bad ideas, good stories. Number 37, Redux.
That's 2 ducks.
2 ducks.
Yeah.
Quack, quack.
Yep. Bad
yeah.
ideas, good stories.
I'm going to do my best. We tried this last week, and I was super apocalyptic, and I kind of ruined the entire vibe within 20 minutes, thinking that the universe wouldn't survive. Or no, the universe will survive, but humanity wouldn't.
Hey,
And
in your defense, I was pretty stoned also. So, I mean, once I got spiraling, I was just like, whoa.
So we had a
it's
hard
pretty
time
heavy.
jiving.
Pretty heavy, man. Yeah.
Hard time jiving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel jivier today.
So you're saying you traveled recently. You went
Yeah.
to Toronto, and that's a trip, you know. During COVID, how was it? Like the airports and stuff?
Oh, it sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, it was no worse than usual, I guess, like in many ways, but like most of the stuff wasn't open, you know? So even as garbagey as airport food is and how expensive it all is, you had limited options. Yeah, so that sucked. And
Well, that's an
yeah.
international hub, too.
Toronto.
Like,
Yeah.
So you get people from like Hong Kong and India all going
Well,
through there,
we
right?
had to root around all over the fucking place because we couldn't go just. It started out, we were supposed to leave on Friday to begin with, and then that flight all got canceled for some reason. So then all of a sudden, I found out like 2 in the afternoon, we got to leave by 5 in the afternoon on Thursday. So, and that involves a trip to fucking Calgary. We're going to spend the night and then fly to Toronto after that. I don't want to do any of it to begin with, and then do that on top of it. Fucking sucked. But
And it's
to be
work.
fair,
It's
and
work.
It was like at a work party, award ceremony fucking thing. So it was like fun work related shit, I guess. But it's still not just go do what I want bullshit.
It's not like a Dunder Mifflin Paper Company party. You know?
Well, no, not far off. That was kind of cool. I shouldn't downplay it that much. Like
You
the
open
guy
up
who
the
owns
door by the
company-
elevator, party in here.
Yeah,
You know?
well, kind of, because usually what they do for these is they fucking it's off to Cancun or some shit. They go do an all inclusive, right? But they couldn't because nobody was traveling or whatever this year. So the guy that owns the company has this great big fucking estate, you know. So he did his backyard up like it was a Mexican resort. Which when you walked in, you're like, oh fuck, this feels exactly like Mexico. This is odd, you know. And he had a DJ playing music and shit, and so he put a bunch of them up there all week. And then we came out at the end of the week, like a bunch of the what do you call managers and shit were all out there during the week. And then so we went out there on the weekend, came up party to his place in the afternoon, and then in the evening he has a fucking like aircraft hangar across the road from his place. So we had the aircraft hangar all done up, and we had like a dinner in there. But I mean, it was 3 days of fucking traveling for like an afternoon where there's worth of sort of eating and hanging out. And
Yep.
the only fun part is everybody I work with is like total fucking degenerates, it turns out. And like almost as soon as I got to the hotel we were staying at, and we start running into all the other reps from all over the country, it's like, well, yeah, so I got all these mushrooms. You guys want to get into some mushrooms, or what are we doing? You know, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm on board, I guess. So I shouldn't complain too much because that was pretty fun. And the first night we ended up at Calgary. One buddy I work with, he's a real party animal. He loves to party. So he's like, we want to go see Les Danseurs. He's like, we got no dancers in Saskatchewan. We got to go see some dancers. So we grabbed the one kid who we work with who'd never been to a strip club before and took him. And yeah, we had quite the evening. We ended up limo riding it back to the hotel at the end of the night and
That's very
shirtless arm wrestling on the floor in the limo.
Good times. Good times.
Yeah, it was fun. So that stuff was fun, but the traveling was garbage. I don't know
went-
anybody who enjoys traveling. You know what I mean?
I like getting there, and I like doing the things you do when you get there.
Yeah.
I hate the process of
it sucks.
traveling. You know,
Or if I'm
airports
driving,
and
I'm down to clown if I'm driving because then I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm in control. I like that. Even a bus isn't so bad, but like planes and shit, ugh.
yeah, it's congested. You're in the air. You can't do anything. I've been seeing so many videos online of people just bugging out, and I think it has to do with like 2 years of lockdown that people are just at the end of their emotional rope, and any little thing will set them off.
Losing their minds.
There was a guy, I forget what airline it was. Some dude, half cut, when he gets on the plane, starts arguing with somebody, probably a mask bullshit, but he starts punching the person over top of another person. And the staff come in and try to interrupt him, and he's going against the staff. One of the staff guys literally packing tapes him to a chair and for the rest of the flight.
And I think that same guy was like grabbing on the stewardesses and shit too.
you know,
like,
he did some ass grabbing and shit.
And I think that was the same guy who at the beginning of said video was yelling about how much money his parents were worth.
Yes, exactly. It's a certain personality that does this
I
shit.
love it. Oh man, I have been so addicted to that shit. That's the Chads of the world and like the Karen videos. Like I can't stop
Chads.
watching them. I
Yeah.
can't. I don't even want to because
Chats.
I know I'm gonna be like, I'll laugh a bit and I'll be kind of outraged that these people even exist. But I just dude, it's so good.
Some of my favorites are when guys go into like Boston bars and they're like, "Do you know my parents are lawyers?" And the bouncers just don't give a shit. They're like, "You know, I'm doing my job, dang it a dang."
Yeah, anything that starts with "Did you know my dad?" No, I'm done. I'm over it.
yeah.
It's not going to help your case at this point.
Yeah, that's not going to help you at all.
Yeah. So yeah, I know traveling was lame. And then when we got to Ontario, it was, there's still, mask mandates and reduced sizes at the restaurant, kind of how we were, 3 months ago or whatever. So, I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but it was just another like, oh, yeah, this is still happening everywhere else, and everybody's living differently.
Yeah, it's tough being in Saskatchewan where everything's lifted and you kind of get the impression that it's done. Right, but the pandemic's over, right?
Yeah. If you're not paying attention, it's absolutely done.
Yeah, and that's a sneaky situation. Let's see what else I got up in here. Oh yeah, traveling. I've traveled a fair amount. I've been around. I went to the Philippines with martial arts. I've been to Detroit, Rochester, New York with martial arts, Seattle with martial arts. I've also been Japan for kink stuff, and like all around Canada with fencing and stuff like that. And we were saying that you like adventure trips, but not like regimented schedule trips. Yeah. And when I went on these martial arts trips, more often than not, like I got a really big debate with my ex, with my kid's mom, because she's like, well, if you're going to go to the other side of the planet, I should get to go. And I'm like, I don't think you realize that we're getting picked up, taken to a compound. We're going to like wake up, do push-ups on the beach, train all day, eat lunch, train all day, kind of pass out early because we do it the next day. It's not like sitting there drinking Mai Tais and watching like the Aqua Blue in the future, all the all-inclusive trip that you think it is. Because come
very
along.
Relaxing,
but we've got a schedule that we're supposed to go on. And it ended up pretty hot. I think that was one of the straws that broke the camel's back with that relationship, that I'm like, this trip's going to happen then. Yeah. So I took the trip, but it turned out I wasn't allowed to train with the martial arts group that I was going with. So I just partied my ass off for 2 weeks.
The old switcheroo.
Oh man, I was on the same plane with my team, and like they were so choked at me, at least the coaches, and they wouldn't talk to me. So I got off in Manila and I just fucking beat her to the cab. I gave him the address to the hotel I was staying at, and I had a line to a quote unquote tour guide who was a tour guide plus, let's just say that. And
tour guide Excelsior package.
Yes, and boy did she show me a different side of Manila. I didn't know there was
a 45th floor on this place.
Yes.
It took me all the way to it.
As opposed to, and then at the end of the 2 weeks of just giving her, I get back on the plane with the guys that have been doing push-ups and training the whole time. They're black and blue, and I'm different kind of black and blue. and I start going through my camera that I took pictures of all the things I was up to this week, and they're like, holy fuck, Pat, and I'm like, and then there's this, and then there was this, and this is a good time, and this is a good time. They were a little blown away by that. Yeah. But I continue to train. I still train Filipino martial arts. I just don't do it as formally as those guys do.
That's interesting. Yep, love a good beach vacation.
Yeah, and that's going to be a while. That's going to be a while, I think.
Yeah.
I think we have to settle for the dog parks with sand on the river.
Those have been my beach vacations. It's been a drought, so the rivers are low.
Yeah.
We get sand.
Is that going to get better? I don't think so.
It's going to be slow.
It's going to be
the weather sucks around here. That's another hot topic.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere in BC, whole fucking coastline was just covered with dead like fish because they can't keep up with the heat, or where all the shellfish and stuff are just dying like massively because they can't keep up with the heat. But we're going to avoid getting into the apocalypse. So yeah.
Yeah, what else we been up to? We did a little stand-up recently.
Yeah,
that was fun at the El Black Cato.
Oh, okay. They're doing a comedy nights or open mic?
Yep, open mics. And it went pretty well. I felt I had a good set. Got some giggles. Did some bits about dads. Yeah, exactly. That's what it sounded like. And I've been working on some new stuff. I was telling these guys about it the other day at band practice, a little bit about different animal encounters I've had growing up, or like friends of mine have had, and I've adopted their stories as my own, basically. And usually they end up with like a violent death of whatever the animal's involved. But this one did not. And it was. This one time I'm going with my old man out to go buy dope from his buddy Larry Cody, who everybody called Larry Coyote. So, and Larry Coyote had never lived in the fucking wilderness before, and he just moved out to this acreage. So we get out there, and Larry's walking around with this like 9-foot long fucking shotgun. And my old man's like, Larry, what the fuck's with this shotgun? And he goes, I'm keeping it to scare away the bears. And he's like, fucking bears, man. You know bears around here. He says, no, I got bears around here. I gotta keep scaring them out of the fucking yard. And he's like, okay. Well, that gun looks like it's about 150 years old, Coyote. Like, does it even shoot? And he goes, well, I don't know. I don't got any bullets for it. And then he goes, well, why are you fucking carrying it around then? He goes, Well, I figured fucking bear would just see that it's a gun and fuck off, you know? Right? And he's like, well, how would you know it's a gun, not a stick? And he's like, well, I don't know. I just figured bears would know, you know? So whatever.
It's the educated bears.
Give me my dope, he says, eh? So they do their thing, and he getting ready to leave the yard, and he's looking around. My old man thinks he's kind of a tracker, eh? So he's like, well, I don't see any fucking sign of bear in here, man. Where are you seeing these bears? And he's like, well, they live here. And right away, I'm like, is this like some Goldilocks kind of shit? Like, did you own this place, Larry, or did you just move in, or what? So, and Dad's like, what do you mean they fucking live here? He goes, well, I got a whole nest of them up in the chicken coop. And he says, a nest of bears in your chicken coop. He says, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, I got like a half a dozen of them. What do they look like? He says, fuck, Clarence, they look like a bear. Furry, claws, long tail, wearing a mask, you know, a fucking bear. My dad starts laughing. He's like, Larry, you got fucking raccoons in there. That's what that is. You don't have a nest of bears. It's raccoons.
A nest of bears.
He goes, oh, I guess that's why they didn't recognize the shotgun. Because a bear would know.
A bear would know.
Yeah, he was new to the wilderness, Larry Coyote. You think with a name like that, he would have been like a real fucking man of the land. But
Well, it's a nickname. It's a nickname.
Yep.
You know? Maybe he's just very skittish and paranoid. Like coyotes. Manson was quite into the coyote awareness, where he thought that was the height of being aware. You know, having a coyote awareness, where you're always in a state of hyper awareness and kind of borderline paranoid. But of course, he did a lot of acid out in Death Valley.
And you know what's interesting about that? Like the spirit animal kind of shit I've read about coyotes is a lot of times they're considered tricksters, and that they again appear to be like a regular dog, but they're much more vicious. Not something you can tame. You know, Charles Goddamn Manson. You know what I mean?
It looks
he appears
like
like a regular dog. That's a regular old beatnik out there with his beatnik buddies. Don't touch that one though; it'll bite your fucking hand off.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
That's a coyote.
Man of the land. Yeah, me and my partner, we went out to our land and we did kind of like a plan to camp overnight, and it failed miserably. We got out there, we did some hiking, great hike, hiked a couple kilometers around the land. It was really cool. Found some really nice spots that we could set up as like, you know, ritual ceremony meditation spots, which would be rad, but we have to kind of cut trail to get to them because we were using the deer trails, you know, cruising around, which is neat. You get to play the tracker game a little bit. You look for the pressed grass and, oh, wait, something's been pushed out of the way here. We'll follow that and see where it goes. And she had a rattle on her back, and to her, that's bear or animal repellent, period. If it's a loud enough rattle, they won't fuck with you. There's something weird. It sounds weird. I'm not going near it. You know?
Totally.
Yeah. So we're doing pretty good. We're setting up a little area where we're going to do some cooking and shit. And I'm pulling apart a bunch of like, you know, old wood that's been like nailed together, and I'm putting it on the side. And being a city guy, I didn't really think. I did bring my hiking boots, but I was fucking around with my flip-flops. And I toss it over there. And, oh, yeah, you know where this is going, too. So I'm pulling one part out, and all of a sudden it lets go, and I slide back, and two rusty nails puncture about a half inch into my heel, one in the arch of my foot and one right in the heel. And I'm like, holy fuck, that hurt. And I look, and it's already dripping blood. And I'm like, okay, we'll go clean it off in the wash basin. So I clean it off, and I put my hiking boots back on. I tighten it down pretty good. And I'm good for another couple hours to walk around and to finish stuff up. And my mood is slowly, you know, like a power level in a video game decreasing. And I'm doing my best not to be a crusty bastard, but it is what it is. And then the sun starts going down. We've cooked, we've eaten. And then all of a sudden the flies set in. And there's like probably 10, 12 flies flying around our head, flying around wherever we go, wherever we sit. Maybe they smelt the food or whatever. And again, not being an outdoorsman, I didn't realize, but a friend of mine clued me in. If you take Irish Spring soap and you chip it out and you just leave it around, the smell of the Irish Spring, really, the flies don't like it. So that's something for people that are out there. And,
actually, it keeps away mice, too, if you throw it like in an old Winnebago or whatever.
Oh, really? Okay.
They don't like that. That's actually the reason I use it.
Yeah, yeah.
It keeps the mice off
Keeps
me.
the flies away.
Keeps them out of my nooks and crannies.
So, yeah, well, it's funny because... and I'm like, you know, this is getting to be a headache, and it's plus 30, and we're going to be sleeping in an insulated van, which is probably going to be about plus 37 by the time we wake up in the morning. Or we could go home.
Hear me out. No comfortable
And her
bed.
eyes just get a glimmer. She's like, that's an option? It's not a failure at life if we go home? We are not outdoors people? So, so we packed up everything, and we headed home. And it's funny, as soon as I stepped out of the van, it's only a 40-minute drive. As soon as I stepped out of the van, I couldn't put any pressure on my foot. And 2 solid days of hopping around. I needed 2 canes to get around. So... She being my partner, well, being me, I'm the stoic guy that's like, fuck it, give me a painkiller, I'll just sit, it'll be fine. She's like, no, we need to call the health line. So we call the health line, and they're like, okay, first off, can you put pressure on? And I'm like, no, it really hurts. And they're like, that could be it punctured the bone. And if it punctured the bone, you might have chunks of rusty nail left in your foot. And if that's the case, you should probably go to the doctor because you might need surgery to take them out. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. Also, you're going to need a tetanus shot, but the chunks being left in could also cause blood poisoning. So you have to watch for red spiderweb like veins going up your leg. And I'm like, I'm covered in tattoos. I can't see any. I'm fucked. She's like, watch your foot. Just if there's red spiderwebs coming up from the injury towards your leg, go immediately to the doctor. I'm like, I'm going to go tomorrow morning and get my tetanus. That's all I'm going to do. Well, eventually we got there and we found a place, got our tetanus shot. The doctor shone light in it, and he's like, okay, there's no chunks. You're going to be good. And now I'm able to slowly walk on it a little bit. You know, starting this morning, I've been able to put pressure without a cane. But that was my outdoorsman experience.
What a fun time.
Reminding me how little prepared I am. And okay, so this is another part of this. We're sitting out there after our hike, and we're hiking back on the road, you know, because she got tired of traipsing through the bush. And we're hiking back on the road. And for a second, I had this moment where I'm like, so imagine now that we don't have a vehicle and we don't have a camp we're going back to, and we're just here. And we need to survive now in this bush. It's just scrub. The river's right there, you know, there's scrub. Do we know what we can eat? Do we know how to trap? Do we know what water is safe? Will we get dysentery? be shitting our health away and like die within days? It reminded me how ill prepared I am to actually survive as an animal without technology.
Well, and it's also kind of how gnarly of a fucking province we live in too. That like legit, like if you were stuck out there and you didn't have a vehicle and whatever, like you'd be stuck having to fucking survive. There's no close enough walking option. You know, if you can walk longer than a day, I guess you might get to a farm or some shit. But I mean, 20 miles is a long fucking way when you're walking.
And it's not like we're living somewhere. We had this conversation on the drive back, actually, where the human animal is geared for like rainforests, Amazon, you know, where you can eat grubs, you can find trees that have fruit.
Yeah, where monkeys do well, we do well.
Yes, we do well where monkeys do well, like probably coastal shores, like where you could probably
circuses.
Yeah, that kind of thing. No, but we are
Keep
not.
it in
We're not geared for this environment, like really. This is in the middle of summer where we should be able to do it. We're kind of like, what do we eat?
Hey, when the summertime can just kill us just as easily as the wintertime. We're not geared up right. You don't got the right fucking outerwear on. You're fucked.
Yeah, so I kind of got to this we're slaves to technology thing for a little while, and like without technology, we're pretty much fucked. And you know, and that was a real wake up call for me. I think that's been the case
though since we've been cavemen. You know what I mean? Like that's what separated us from everybody else. Like first time somebody could pick up a rock or a stick and smash somebody with it, you're like technology.
Fire on the end of a stick. You know, when like a bear recognizes fire more than a rifle. You're waving a fire in its face.
I'm
it's like, ooh.
That's a true story as well. That gentleman said all of those things. Jesus. But no, for sure. Yeah, exactly. As soon as you can run fire, you're running shit.
Yeah, exactly. Because they won't come near the hut. They won't come near like the circle where there's a fire. That's and the combination of domestic dogs probably was a big thing to keep us safe from the elements, you know. But it was a real wake up call for me out there, realizing how inefficient I am, you know. Yeah, I think.
Hey, you think you're doing all right, you're doing okay, and then once again I am deficient in a way that I would like to not be deficient.
Well, and fuck. The first day I'm out there, I put two nails through my foot.
Flip-flops. That's what you got you.
Yeah.
I talk shit about flip-flops all the time, not even about a fashion thing. Every time I see them, I'm always like, how do you run from the cops in those?
No.
How do you get in a fight in flip-flops? You know?
Okay, so to me, the evolution from Doc Marten combat boots to flip-flops came with not having to run from the police, not getting in fights anymore, not carrying a knife.
You had to wear footwear that hobbled you so you couldn't do the fight.
No,
it was ride a motorcycle with flip-flops on.
Oh yeah, that's true. It was the opposite. I wasn't preoccupied with those things anymore, so I could allow myself to wear flip-flops and be casual guy. And it's funny because the summers roll around. I just re-registered my bike in the last week for 1 month. I think I'm going to get riding in, but it's a decision whether I'm going to wear flip-flops and shorts, my summer wear, or I'm going to ride a bike. because you can't do both. And so it's been a real and usually flip flops.
Looking like an asshole.
Well, yeah, that guy. Yeah, let's do that guy. But I've been
Missing a bunch of skin and toes.
Yes, exactly. I used to have tattoos on this stump.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, Terry. I know you're out there without a leg. A good friend of ours, he got hit by a woman doing a left-hand turn in a van, and he lost his leg from the knee down. He's a tattoo artist, Terry O. And it's funny because I tattooed that leg and that he lost, and I was on his case. I'm like, can I get that tattoo? Is there any way of getting that like preserved? I'd love to have it on the wall, Terry. He's like, no, they wouldn't give me the stump.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Damn
Bunch of stump keepers, hey?
Yeah.
Unreal.
That's some valuable skin you're throwing away there.
Nice stump you got there. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Fucking somebody else we know recently got run over by somebody in a vehicle.
Like crazy Duck Lake people, yeah.
Yeah, man. Hey, fuck. We're living out in the fringes, I'm telling you, man. There's hardly anybody that lives out here, and we still get all the same problems at like major centers.
Well, okay, you remember the show Easy Riders? You know, the hippies that go
Like
on the ride.
the movie, you
Easy
mean?
Rider?
Yeah.
The guy that they're
There was a
taking.
TV show called Easy Riders for a second. I was like,
no.
did I miss out? Was it equally as homoerotic?
Was
No,
it?
Sorry.
I don't remember
Easy
being
Rider. Well,
homoerotic.
that's when the one guy gets beaten to death when they're out in the fucking bush by those hillbillies. They follow him out because they thought they were a bunch of queers, and beats the shit out of him in the sleeping bag by the fire.
Oh, okay. I don't
Who
remember.
dies?
I don't remember that part.
Nicholson dies, I think. Actually, I think Jack Nicholson gets killed.
Yes, but
Yeah.
that's by other rednecks. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though.
This
He's
is the
beaten by
callback
rednecks, yeah.
to my point. When you watch the movie Easy Rider, for those people that haven't seen it, it's about a bunch of dudes that are doing a chopper run across country. They're drug traffickers, but whatever. They're doing a chopper run across country, and just what they have to deal with is being left of center radicals in the 60s, late 60s in, I guess, hillbilly America, and just you guys are queers and beating the shit out of them and stuff like that.
All the adventures they go on.
When I watched that show as a young man, I'm like, what? This is Saskatchewan. Literally.
Yeah.
And at the end, you know, these biker guys are cruising along and these rednecks just pull up next to him with a gun and shoot the one dude.
Yeah.
And that's it.
unceremoniously just blow them
Boom.
away.
And why? Because you won't belong
Spoiler
there.
alert.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it in the last 30 years, 40 years. But that's basically, well, that vibe, at least, if not that overt violence, is Saskatchewan.
That exact same kind of shit still happens here. You get somebody killed with a trailer hitch from exactly that. Drives up with a pickup truck, driving by, throw something out the window at somebody that you can just driving by tell that you want to do harm to.
Trailer hitches will kill you. You know, if thrown from a moving vehicle. They weigh about 5 pounds of metal.
We're fucking keeping it light.
Anyways, but that being said, a friend of ours was downtown Saskatoon, and these guys tried to jump him and beat him up. So he hopped on his motorcycle trying to get away, and these guys jumped in their pickup truck, chasing him, rammed him off the road. He ended up hospitalized. They ran from the cops. They got caught. They got arrested. Aggravated assault, uttering threats, maybe even attempted murder. I'm not sure what all got thrown.
Pretty easy argument. You try to run somebody over.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I'm gonna kill you, and now I hit you with my truck.
yeah. No, I mean, I was just telling a bit of a story. I'm a jokester. You know, I'm always joking around. You can't take the words I mean literally.
Literally,
I mean, I was
kill
going to literally kill him. I just wanted to put him in a wheelchair when I drove over him.
Yes, for sure.
It was a calculated risk.
And they were drunk. You know, like redneck Saskatchewan is a thing. It's still, you know, people don't. There was this one band called Sharptooth, and they're from, I think, the States somewhere. They got a trans guitarist and a lady vocalist, and they're very like PC, you know, politically
They shred,
correct.
by the way.
Yeah, they're rad. They opened for Cancer Bats.
Yep.
Yeah. We
Awesome.
were at the gig together.
It was a fucking deadly show.
Yes, it was.
Hey,
And
friend, remember we used to do friend things out,
when we could
out in the
go out.
world when you could do things? And
So I was buying a hoodie from those guys, and I'm like, where are you guys going to next? And they're like, a place called Fort Mac. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, just remember that you're in the Mississippi of the North up here, and some of the screaming, don't call me faggot off of the monitors may not fly as well in Fort Mac. Just giving you a heads up. You never know what might be waiting.
You do you.
Yeah,
know.
good luck. You never
Choose
know what's
your
going to be
path.
waiting out the
Hey,
bar.
You never know.
though.
You might wake up some people that get out there like, fuck, I didn't know I was bigoted.
Jesus, I didn't know I was trans.
Yeah.
I came out here to make oil money, and now I am a woman.
Banging the table
Anyways.
about over here. Yeah. Hey, fuck, I bet you that now that's a documentary I'd watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came out here to make oil money, and now I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting transition.
how I make my
You know
money
what?
now.
Actually, I saw a really fucking. I wish I could remember now that we're talking documentaries. No, I really wish I could remember the fucking title of this one, but it was one shot in Vancouver. and it was a guy in a wheelchair was shooting it, and he used to be a pro skater, if I remember correctly, and ended up in a wheelchair. And I didn't recognize him before this, but like, and he was shooting this documentary about these guys, mostly homeless, that would race shopping carts down the fucking hills out in BC while they were out picking cans and shit in all these like affluent neighborhoods, going through everybody's shit, right?
That's how extreme sports start.
Fucking right, man. Trying to figure out how to scrounge through a rich neighborhood. How fast? My
And
bike's only got
entertaining
one
yourself
speed.
while you're street
Can you
rats.
jump that fence to get away? Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, I wish I remember the name of this. But if anybody's looking, it was a Canadian documentary. Yeah, and it's about these guys who would race these shopping carts downhill. Again, all mostly homeless. Everybody's got mental illness issues and addictions issues. And so this guy kind of not lived with them, but like was in their lives for like at least a fucking summer.
Carts of Darkness.
Carts of Darkness. Thank you, Russell. Solid pull. Carts
Do you know
of
where
Darkness.
it's on, or what's it? You'd have to download it, or you
fuck,
could
I
find it on
watched it on-
Netflix, or
I seen it on some sort of streaming service I had
Okay,
at one
yeah.
time, but yeah,
Carts of Darkness.
It's on Prime.
Prime.
There
Okay,
you
check
go.
that out if you get a chance. I will now.
It's a good watch, and yeah, I'm not gonna give you any spoilers or nothing, but it's like, yeah, the homeless, the kind of interesting characters you think that would race shopping carts for whatever, and like I'm talking race these fucking things down fucking hill.
Well, they people still like to go fast.
Yeah, man.
What is that? The Dogtown Z Boy, the documentary. I'm not sure if it's Lords. I think Lords of
this is
Dogtown
the
was the
equivalent
movie.
of that, but with shopping carts.
Yes. So you think about it. In the 70s, well, really, it seems. But with bums?
shopping carts. No, sorry. Yeah, no, they go. Yeah. Anyways,
Well, in
continue.
the 70s, you have these kids that are going nowhere, and they're like dropouts, and they come from broken families. And the guy who runs a local surfboard shop, he's like, hey, you guys can hang out here. You guys like skateboards? Oh, hey, watch us surf. And some of them were surfers. And there was like surfers that did specific moves. So all of a sudden, these little street urchins hanging around one surfboard shop itself started designing their own style of aggressive skating that was so far removed from anything that skateboards saw before, right? Like they're bombing hills and touching the ground and really getting into flow and style. And then they started getting into bowl skating, which was pool skating, because the California pools were all nice and curved. They weren't just flat and cornered.
Yeah, like the ones we have here in the prairies.
Yeah, exactly. I never understood bowl skate or pool skating when I was a skater. I'm like, why? This just goes down and then it's a hard stop. I never got it. So,
That's funny.
but yeah, so those guys developed their entire style, and what we think of skateboarding today with the ollies and the tricks and all of that stuff came specifically from this one little surfboard shop. And these radical kids that were so fucked up, they didn't really fit anywhere else in society, that hung around one mentor who, I think his name was Skip or something like that, who got them all into skating.
Yeah.
And it created a movement. So that's what it reminds me of, like Carts of Darkness, like some crazy
Hey,
dudes.
could take off. Yeah,
You
could be
never
competitive
know, right?
karting. This was not competitive in any way. There was a competition to live for most of these people. They were struggling. But yeah, no, well, and it's interesting. Again, yeah, I'm not going to talk about this fucking thing anymore because you guys are going to watch it. Carts of Darkness. But no, I'm sorry. When you were talking about that, weirdos kind of making a culture, I think that's almost everything ever cool. You know, like when you start getting to the core of it, and it's also that they're usually very, 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 very flawed people. Not just that they're weird, but they're also broken in a bunch of different ways and did a bunch of shitty shit throughout their life.
I
So,
think that when
yeah, I find it
mainstream
interesting.
culture doesn't allow somebody to fit in functionally, they have to develop subcultures, or they find subcultures and they fit in, whether it's I don't know, like Cholo culture in the Mexicali, Mexican California area, or, you know, the punks and the skinheads in England back in the day. They had no job opportunities, no future, so they had their own music that they kind of mods, rockers.
Yes.
Subculture develops from when mainstream society has nothing to offer a generation, right?
Yeah.
So
And then eventually it becomes some sort of a portion of mainstream culture.
Doc
But it
Marten
started out
boots.
with yes, exactly. Started out with the crazy weirdos, right? And then everybody, it's accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
And watered down version by that point. And everybody talks about how the first wave of everything was always so much more core and raw and better than everything that came after that. And
yeah,
it's probably fucking true, you know.
we'll wait and see.
First
you know?
time go around for anything when it's new and fresh, like fuck.
Well, tattooing, let's take that for example. It came from really fringe element. You have military and bikers and outlaws and like the prostitute, like real underworld people. And then the less underworld, like skaters and headbangers and punk rockers, got into tattooing and started getting tattooed. And
Yep.
then all of a sudden, those guys got old enough that television and the internet started putting them in front of you on MTV, Much Music, whatever. And then all of a sudden, it became popular culture.
Yep.
So the spirit of the outlaw spirit of tattooing has been watered down to where it's just like a fashion accessory.
Yeah, that's it. 'Cause I'm even just picturing that, and like if you think about like if it's like because music would be a bridge for a lot of that. All of a sudden, people that never had any connection to that culture can enjoy the music of it and then want to look like they're part of it, right?
Yep.
And that would be wild if it was like, no, it's only these gnarly groups of people that fucking get tattoos, and then the musicians within those groups go out and make bands and make something interesting, and then people are like, oh, hey, wait a minute, and you're like, once again, we're starting with the weirdest of the weird over here, and then you're going, hey, now it's acceptable culture.
Extreme fringe music introduced me to extreme fringe body modifications, whether it was body piercing or tattooing.
Sure.
Tattooing specifically, bands like Agnostic Front or the Cro-Mags or Henry Rollins, for example. These guys had lots of crazy tattoos, and we're talking like back in the early 80s, full torso, full frontal torsos, full backs. Like Rollins has the huge sun with the Search and Destroy or Seek and Destroy across his back. And these guys were like these alpha male, like raw. But what we forget is they came from the streets. They came from really rough areas, and then they were venting their frustration through music, and through music that got sent across, I guess, North America. People had access to this. I didn't have tons of pictures of Yakuza guys to base like, oh, that's what a bodysuit looks like. No, I had New York hardcore and Boston hardcore. You know, guys like Slap from Choke from Slapshot. You know, he got, I think, a huge sleeve from Smiling Buddha in Calgary. He traveled to Calgary to get his stuff done. So these guys were the reasons I got into tattooing, and the music was very closely linked to that, specifically hardcore punk, right? And but then that was in the 80s, and then it's changed. You know, I would say, and I've said it more before, and I'll say it again, that it was one thing when tattooing hit the internet. All of a sudden, anybody who wanted to look up what a tattoo looked like could get onto the internet and say, hey, that's what it's supposed to look like. That's what they're doing down the street. That's what they're doing on the other side of the country. That's what they're doing in other countries. Wow, that's crazy. But then there was another step with Miami Inc. when all of a sudden it went from the internet to into your living room in prime time.
Yeah,
and
you can stumble across it.
Yes, it's like, whoa, what
You
is
can just
this?
be on after some other shit you're watching.
This
and
is
all
what
of a
it's
sudden
like to
you're
walk into a tattoo shop. These are the people I'll interact with. This is what a tattoo world is like. Oh, it's not that scary outlaw thing as much as I thought. I can
Right.
go in there. I could go through that. Then I could tell my story with ink. And then Kat Von D. Kat Von D
Everything
happened.
changed for the better.
It changed. It changed. You have a different clientele. You have a different era of artists. You have people that once felt that they didn't belong. Suddenly, I have a place in tattooing, and now it's hair salon. It's hair salon shit. That's where tattooing is now. I, as a bitter old antisocial punk rock guy from the wrong side of the tracks, tattooing is not what it used to be. I'm just putting that out there. Yeah.
Well, and like I think pick a subculture of anything. It's not what it used to be, but the way it
that's
used to
valid.
be still exists in pockets. You know what I mean? You can still find shops where everybody's kind of core. Like everybody's fucking a little rough, and that all still exists. It's just it's so much more accessible to everybody, which I sometimes don't have a problem with, because if it wasn't for that, like growing up in Kent River, Saskatchewan, if shit wasn't more accessible, I never would have found out about it.
Yep,
And I was
that's
already
valid.
fucking decades behind about finding out about stuff, by the time I got around to it. And so, there's lots of kids out there, that's how you get into something cool, right? But it also does fucking bring a lot of goddamn nerds into it. So many nerds.
Okay, so before the internet, me and my brother used to joke, because we did a radio show and all this other stuff, where it would take about 10 years for the shit that was popular in Vancouver or Toronto to finally get to central Canada, especially Saskatchewan, because we are like the last. We're like a landlocked island, right?
Yeah.
And even Carrot River would even be longer than that. Probably be 2 more years to get from Saskatoon to Carrot River.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then when the internet happened, that quickly changed. I remember the first time I asked the guy, oh, you like the Misfits? He's like, oh, yeah, I downloaded all their albums. I've got all their torrents. I'm like, dude, I had to go to Seattle to get this record and carry it back very carefully that it didn't break or melt in our family van. I get it on the play or on the turntable. I'm so stoked. It had red vinyl. It was that Misfits Beware album right there. And I was so stoked to get that home without breaking it or melting it or anything else. And then to see pictures of these guys and to hear this album that I'd never heard, but that my friends didn't have dubbed cassette tapes. Like that was what this used to be. And now you're like, oh, I'm a fan. I downloaded all the torrents.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not the same. And I'm,
you didn't earn it.
Well, you don't respect it the same way.
No,
and
for
this is kind of it. And I'm not denigrating that. You could be a huge fan of the band, but to me, this is part of my heart.
Well,
you know,
and I think when you do that, like I know for myself, when I was trying to track down CDs and shit like that, I poured over every bit of fucking information that was in there. I knew the address of the fucking where the headquarters for the record company was, you know, because it's on the bottom on the back of the CD. You knew everybody they toured with, you know who their writing partners were. And then I'd find out about bands from that, and then you felt you had a real connection. You knew their story,
or it was almost like a myth.
kind of- yeah.
You tried to figure out the story because it wasn't accessible. I remember I got Agnostic Front's Liberty and Justice album when I was like 14. And so I'd be sitting there listening to this album, and I'm like, well, I like this music. Who else should I listen to? And in their liner notes, they thank a whole bunch of other New York hardcore bands. So I went down to the record store and I just started gambling with my allowance. I'm like, I want to get this band and I want to get this band. Or if the guy, because used record stores here were kind of cool, they were kind of edgy. Every once in a while, they'd bring some album in and had a bunch of skinheads. And I'm like, I need this, you know? And what's this all about? And it was hit and miss. I got some good ones. I got some bad ones. I'll be the first to admit. But that being said, that's my exposure to that music. And you'd wait your 4 weeks to get your cassette, you know, that you ordered or record sometimes. And some of them were good and some of them sucked. And you realize, well, I like this stuff and I don't like that. And then eventually me and my brother and some other friends had enough of a collection. We did a radio show and we just started playing all of our stuff Friday night from 12:30 at night till whenever we got off. Sometimes it was 3, 4 in the morning. And we were the last show on a Friday night. So we just gave her. And people, we started getting phone calls that people were just pressing record and recording, and that's how they got exposed to new music. So it was cool. Yeah, and that was all before the internet, because then once the internet happened, there's free access to all this stuff. You know what YouTube, you know what they look like, you know what they sound like, you know their story, you've got all their discography, and I'm like, but is it the same? And can we expect it to be the same?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I think there's a big
almost like
shift.
almost feel bad for them now that we're saying all that, because it's like you don't get that opportunity now.
Well,
or you have to hunt for it, I guess.
Okay, so this is the other thing that I find. There are environments like that left.
Yeah.
But they're underground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't really, you can pretend all you want to be into ceremonial hook suspension, but you're not going to find a lot of information being put on it on the internet. You know, hey, I'm going to look up where I can go to get hung by hooks.
Yeah.
But it exists. Those environments exist.
Yeah.
Same thing with the kink, underground kink world. Yeah, you can get on websites where everybody's winking and gunning and sending emojis at each other, but that's not really being involved. You have to get out of your house and go down into the basement and find these places to actually be involved in that. And once you're involved, you're like, oh, that's what it's about, because I had to seek it out. And if you don't seek it out, you can pretend to be whatever you want on the internet. That's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
I'm a Viking on the internet.
That's kind of the benefit of the internet, right?
I'm Magnusson Thorson on the internet. Oh, yeah, that's me.
9 feet tall.
Yeah, 100%. Throwing active.
Oh, snip. I've been fucking, just a side note here. I just started watching that Game of Thrones.
Oh.
I'd never seen any of it.
I've only seen the first season. So
I just finished the first season yesterday.
That's like me and The Walking Dead. Eh?
Yeah. Oh, fuck. You know what, though? Give up now if you're watching The Walking Dead. Anybody else listening also. Again, the first season of Walking Dead, I really enjoyed. Like, the first episode I thought was fucking awesome, and then it just got great. And then the second season, it was just like, what the fuck's going on? And when that kid got shot, when they're trying to hunt the deer, I was like, I'm over it. I'm out. I can't.
Oh, that's when you checked out?
I couldn't do it anymore.
Okay.
I'm like, nope. In any
I think
other
we're like
fucking
5
scenario,
seasons after that right now.
No, fuck, no, I couldn't do it. I'm like, any other scenario, you're just like, well, I guess we're eating this kid then. You know what I mean?
little
Like,
bit.
you're not spending extra time waiting here and
I was a little disappointed.
risking the group shit because this one little asshole keeps getting killed every episode. And you have to revive him every time. Nah, fuck that noise. I wanted to be a little more ruthless than that. And then this, no, I've been enjoying the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The old lady's a huge fan. Like, she just knows every fucking storyline and angle and
See,
how
that's
everything's
something.
going to play out.
That's what we should get into next.
And so it's interesting, yeah, because there's lots to it. But I guess the more I watch, the less frustrated I'll be with it. I'm sure. You know what I mean? That's how it works, right?
See, when I was watching these zombie series, like first off, my partner was watching some Canadian-produced zombie series. I'm like, if you like this, Walking Dead is on. We should watch that if you want to watch our zombie
Yeah, you want to
series.
see a zombie movie once a week because that's what that fucking thing is.
So we watched that, and but then I started getting frustrated because my apocalypse mind of what would probably happen in real life starts interrupting what they're doing. Where are the cannibals?
That's
Like,
what I'm
why
talking
aren't-
about.
Yeah, like this would be a normal
there
thing.
would be a blood cult of some sort that dedicated themselves to the zombie horde who want to be zombies but without becoming them.
Yep.
People are fucked. Like they'd be running into a lot more of that. Wouldn't be so many timid survivors banding together. Should we huddle in the forest and band
plucky
together?
band of survivors.
Yeah. Let's wait on the women and children and elderly. We'll bring them with us. It's like, nope. You guys, if
Yeah.
you're not food, you're fodder. Get the fuck out of the fucking way. Like,
Yeah, or exactly. Keep them around so when we need to run, they're slow.
yeah, exactly.
But that's that's one of the frustrating things. There's a lot more happy-go-lucky zombie survival as opposed to the grimy, holy shit, I got a sliver, now I have to lose my hand.
Like the old like Night of the Living Deads and shit like that. There was none of that. It was like you got dragged. Okay, well, peace out. We're gone.
Yeah.
The helicopter's leaving. Like we can't linger.
Get to the chopper.
Yeah. Love me some good chopper too. Getting.
You ever listen to Austrian Death Machine? Yes. I suggest listening to Austrian Death Machine.
If you want to laugh and also smash your head at the same time.
Really good metal.
It's so catchy.
Yeah,
And
it's
what
well done.
band is that?
I'm pretty sure it's a one-man project from the singer of As I Lay Dying.
Okay, I knew it was someone who was like the creative thing behind like some big metal band. I couldn't remember.
So
which
he
one.
wrote the riffs, he played the music. I think he recorded drums on a drum machine, kind of like programmed it all, did the vocals, and it's fucking rad. It's a thrash / death metal hardcore project in the style of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
Yeah.
And he does the Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonations for the vocals. All of the lyrics have to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
Every song title is a line from an Arnold Schwarzenegger
It's so
movie.
good. Yeah. It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor. Yeah, it's really gold. Austrian Death Machine, you get a chance.
Oh, and listen to it, amazing. But if you can see any of the YouTube videos along with it, 'cause there's
really?
some animated ones that go along with it, and they've done some live action ones and stuff that's just like edited Schwarzenegger movies with him like doing like the one Kindergarten Cop one. I can't remember what it is, but they keep running the loop of him saying it. It's so amazing.
That's
It's
funny.
So amazing. Yeah, fucking love it.
Who is your daddy and what does
That's
he do?
the fucking song. Who's your daddy and what does he do? Who's your daddy and what does he do? God damn. That look good on a T-shirt even. Who's your daddy and what does he do? What are you implying, sir?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
My
All
partner's
these
in
chicks that start wearing it around, eh? They
Oh, it's
claim it
funny.
Like that was it Call Her Daddy? That
Well, okay,
fucking
so this is
podcast?
the thing. I told my partner I wasn't going to throw her under the bus, but I'm totally going to throw
Oh,
her under
shit.
the bus.
Beep,
She's probably
beep,
upstairs working
beep.
on it right now. She's in the process of starting up an Etsy store, for T-shirts and stuff. And it's all like daddy dom little girl vibe, like yeah, right. So the fact that you mentioned that, it's like segued.
You're like, this is my life.
seamlessly.
Yeah,
Lubed
yeah.
it up and segued it in.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I'm glad I wore sweatpants for this conversation.
Yeah. So she's making shirts that say like "Yes, Daddy" and things like that. Not necessarily all of those are her kinks, but the other element is that somebody out there's
It's a
gonna dig
business,
it.
all right? It's a
Somebody out
business.
there's gonna dig it.
It's not for me. It's for you.
Well, and
It's here to arouse you.
yeah, exactly. I'm not into any
here
of
to
that.
turn you
it's
on.
just a business. It's just I'm doing research.
Just a squirrel trying to get a nut.
I'm not looking at porn. I'm doing research for my business.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, I also tried to start up a Shopify account for some of the Dragon Slayer recovery stuff.
Sweet.
We got these fancy water bottles.
I like your guys' logos and shit. Every
Yeah.
one I've seen has been cool.
Yeah, well, that's kind
The
of
shorts
our
are
vibe.
cool.
Yeah, we're working on it.
The vibe's trying to be cool. You
It
know what I
is.
mean?
We're trying to make it like, hey, I want to wear
Yeah.
that merch, but
Well,
I
you
should
know
probably
what?
be sober.
Again, the two things that you guys are trying to incorporate a lot of times can either be like the most aggressive and it's just skulls and horns, or it's also like the recovery stuff can be very dry. You know what I mean? A lot of people are fucking, well, no,
Square.
That's totally it. It's a very square approach to it. And so, yeah, making cool merch for something that people traditionally think is kind of a square thing. Oh, you gotta fucking get sober. Well, if you don't want to die and be a piece of shit, yes, I guess so. It's up to you.
Well, and it's funny, as this evolves, we're kind of like, we've decided we're more or less focusing on self-improvement across the board. It's not just about being sober, although that's one part of it, or fitness, that's one part of it, or, all of it, ethics, all of that. It's just self-improvement program. But I'm trying to start the Shopify account so we could sell some of our stuff online. What a fucking nightmare. Like it's insane how these online e-commerce sites say very user friendly, then I got to be handicapped as shit because I cannot understand any of it. And so get this, I try to set it up. This is fucked. I try to set it up. Okay, I think I've got a Shopify shop. I think it's good. I think it's set up. I've got my business PayPal set up over here. I've linked it. So if you press the button, you want to play with PayPal, it'll go to the PayPal site. It'll process your payments. I think everything's good. I think we're good. I'm going to make a payment. Okay, so I'm going to buy a banner from myself. I click pay, PayPal, pay the money. Cool. I go to my PayPal account and I go, I need to process the money. And they say, you committed fraud. Bang. We're shutting down your account. We're shutting down your bank account. You can never do business again with PayPal with this bank account or this email account. And I'm like, I think I made a mistake.
Did I not check a box? What the fuck just happened?
And they're like, well, this is a risky behavior. Somebody, you're processing credit card payments in your own name and da-da-da-da-da. They won't listen to me. They've locked my bank account. I can no longer ever use that bank account with a PayPal account. I can't use my email anymore with a PayPal account. There's no recourse.
That's so fucking weird. Like they don't ever have anybody that ever like that seems logical to me even to test it out to see if it works. And how else would you do it?
I'm like, try this out. Boom, you're locked. You can no longer use this.
Holy fuck.
And there's nothing I can do to contest their decision. I've emailed them 3 times. They're like, no, sorry, you have no longer have access to our business. You can no longer use PayPal. You're locked out. And for an accident, for a literal accident. So I'm like, well, B, it looks like I don't have PayPal on my Shopify account. I guess hopefully they don't do the same thing with credit card processing or anything else. And then there's also the nightmare of trying to figure out how to ship across borders and all of this other stuff. And I'm like, I don't know how these companies do it. I really don't, especially independent companies. Like, I'm the creative guy. I do the graphics. I do the printing. I can get the merch done. I can come up with the concept. And worst case scenario, I can take payments and send it. But that's starting to get complicated for me. I'm the guy they keep in the back that does the work. And then the other people that are good with numbers do the number thing, right? Yeah, it's a nightmare. You know, we were talking about doing merch.
Well, if you're doing because
for the podcast
previously, that fucking T-shirt thing you guys use or Chris uses, it seems to work pretty smoothly.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it just depends on who you're integrated with and how everything.
We just deal directly with just that site.
Oh, okay.
It's print on demand. So
yeah, you can go straight to the print, and you've got a catalog on that print on demand site.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting option. Yeah. So you go straight to what do you Teespring?
Teespring.
Yeah. So there's
throw
one
some
spot.
bills, yo.
Teespring is one.
Is that a little loud? I want a Teespring to throw some bills, yo.
Well, yeah, exactly. You could. Well, and that'd be
Turn
nice.
me back up, you piece of shit. You turn me down. See him over
Because
there
then you
fucking
could
looking
go
at me.
to one website. Hey, what do you like out of this? And just click it, and I want it on this, and I click it on, I want it on that. With Shopify, they're trying. You can do like a serious like online business. Like a mall could use Shopify. You know, Nike could use Shopify if they wanted to. It's like set up to be that large, but you kind of need to have somebody who's adept at programming and organizing and translating tech shit, and I'm not that guy. I'm a throwback. I print shit. Give me money, I give you the shit. There you go.
Give me money, I give you the shit.
Comes from
that's
a
pretty much
previous-
my sales strategy. You want shrimp? Give me money, I give you shrimp.
Yes, exactly. It
That's
comes
what I
from
do.
a previous standard of business, you know, and our tattoo model has worked for years doing that. You give me the thing, I give you the thing, right? And everybody's happy. And when they come and ask for their cut with guns, we have to give them a cut. Yeah, it's not extortion if it's
Yeah, it's government backed.
if it's the
not
government.
extortion
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly. If it's just the guy on the corner, it's a crime. But when the government does it, it's legal. It is the law. It's the
La
law.
law.
When you call it the law, it's legal.
Law.
Yeah.
Lawyerly. Lawingly.
Well, and apparently something like PayPal, this has been a wake-up call for me, right? Because I made an accidental mistake, a very simple to explain accidental mistake. I didn't even think it was a mistake. I think they're jumping the gun. They don't want to hear it, and it's within their right to just say, fuck you, you can't use it anymore. Now,
What if it's somebody you know?
right?
Hey, some sort of vendetta.
well, right? So
P.
what's...
Burke, fuck that guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But now, how far a stretch of this is living in a society where you've done something we don't like? We're shutting off your access to your credit. We're shutting off your access to your online banking.
That's a China.
Yeah,
That's what they're doing there right fucking now.
that social credit.
You
system?
don't hit, yeah, right,
Yeah.
man. You fucking fucks with it fucks with your credit. It fucks with your access to internet use, like
Your access
pick
to
a
travel.
thing. Yep.
Travel. You know, I think if I lived in China, the only access to travel that I would need would to be get the fuck out and give me a one-way ticket to anywhere but.
You'd be from one gulag to another. That's where you'd be
Oh,
traveling.
That's basically it. That would be me. Well, we do have social credit systems in place, right? SGI with their demerit program. If you get a ticket, you owe SGI money. You get too many tickets, you owe them more and more money, up to $1,000, and you have to go to a re-education program. You don't have a right to
Their
drive.
terminology, by the way.
Yes, it
Re-education
is
program.
re-education program. And if you say I don't want to, they're confiscating your property, and you no longer can travel legally. And if you get caught traveling illegally, you get your vehicle taken, you go to jail, or you have to pay more money. So it's a control. That's a social credit system. You know, but if you're a good driver and you obey all the laws, well, you get extra points and you get cheaper insurance, and you're one of the good kids. How's that any different?
Try being a good kid, Pat. You'll find out.
Yeah, right? Okay, let's get going on this. Motherfuckers. I'm glad.
No, I know.
I'm
This
glad
guy
this last
sucks.
seatbelt ticket didn't send me to the re-education program, because I had my fuck SGI shirts
Yeah.
planned out. I had stickers planned out. I wanted to pay in loonies, the whole nine, but whatever. So the deal is, in Saskatchewan, if you get a ticket, you get a demerit point, and you only get one every year that passes, you get forgiven 1 point. Okay, if you go 3 years with 0 demerits, 0 tickets, you get bounced back to 0, and that means you don't have to pay anything. But if within 3 years, let's say I got a stop sign, I did a right-hand turn on a stop sign, that's a 4-point demerit. So it would take me 4 years doing nothing to slowly chip away at that. So let's say 2.5 years goes by and I get a seatbelt ticket. Well, that's another 3 points. So you're down to 1.5 points or 2 points. You get 3 points added on. Now you're at 5 points. So, okay, I work. I'm doing pretty good. And I get caught speeding down a bridge. And I get a ticket for going 10 kilometers more than 50. I'm going 62 or something at the end of a downhill slope.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It keeps.
I know the spot.
Yeah, it keeps getting added on. Yeah. So sooner or later, you get to 8 points, and you owe them, I think, $100 a point. Right? For every year, you have to pay this. The next year, when you go down, it's $700. The next year, it's ridiculous.
And that's not including the cost of the tickets themselves.
That's on top of the cost of the ticket. And so you have to go 3 years sparkling clean for that to reset. But in 2.5 years, if you get any little infraction, it doesn't get reset. So you have to wait another 3 years. It's a racket. It is a ridiculous racket that you can't get out of, because we don't even have an option in our province.
And what's the, I understand that they're like, well, it's a deterrent then, right? Like, you'll drive better if you think you don't have to go to these things or whatever. But like, sometimes you're just not paying attention. And I mean, that's no fucking excuse while you're driving, I guess. But rolling through a stop sign, doing a right turn, exactly. That's not a habitual dangerous driver scenario, because that's what they always use at the end of it. It's like, well, if people who drove drunk all the time, what if we didn't charge them? Or if people who always fucking sped, what if we didn't do that? And it's like, yeah, okay, we'll deal with them accordingly then.
Then deal with the cops that are overzealous to get ticket minimums and to be handing out tickets for any little infraction they can. Check them. Get rid of quotas if you're going to be punishing people on top of the tickets through SGI for that kind of thing. These guys are running around ticket crazy, handing out shit for the most minimum stuff they can. You did a left-hand turn on a yellow, and I noticed that you're not wearing your glasses from your thing. So I'm giving you 2 tickets here, which is each a different demerit. So you're going to get bumped down for that left-hand turn on a yellow, plus the tickets, you're down to -6 points in one little pullover, because that cop was just eager to pull me over and shine his light in my truck to see if there was any contraband that he could claim was in open sight, right? Here's the secret when you get pulled over. They need to have reasonable probable grounds to look inside your car. Reasonable probable grounds says that they have reasonable grounds to think you're committing a crime to search your vehicle. And cops will play this game. They're like, oh, you doing anything wrong today? No. Well, so you don't mind if I search your car? Well, yes, I do, because I'm not consenting to you search my car. Because they're actually asking, do you mind if I search your car? That's a real question.
Yeah.
But they lead in with, oh, you doing anything illegal today? And you're like, no. So you don't mind if I search your car
Yeah.
for anything I could charge you with? No, I don't mind because I got nothing to hide. At any given time, you got the right to say, I don't consent to this search.
No.
Well, what are you hiding? Nothing. You're wasting my time. Give me my ticket and go away. Oh, well, why are you acting suspicious? Why are you holding me up and trying to search my car without my consent? Because you need to give consent. And if they do, and you verbally, if they search you regardless, and you say I don't consent to this, and God forbid they find, I don't know, a bag of weed that isn't the official dispensary thing, you have an out, right? But at the same time, I'm so tired of the overreaching and the overarching power grabs that the state does against civilians. We're supposed to be free people as long as you live within this nice little box, within these little confines. And then we shit talk China
Yeah.
for having a social justice or a scoring system.
Well, you know what? At least they're upfront about it, I guess. They're like, no, this is what we're doing. When we're like, well, no, we're doing the same kind of shit here. We're just not telling you about it, and we're only applying it selectively.
And we're telling you
because
free.
shit like I know exactly what you're talking about. Getting pulled over. I was with a buddy one time, and the cop just decided he wanted to get him for something, so he was okay. Pop the hood. Okay, well, it doesn't look like your battery is secured properly. Well, that's a ticket. That license plate, that's not. That looks like it's loose. Yeah, it's rattling around. That's a danger. That's a ticket. You know, and it's like
That's throwing the book at somebody.
and you're going, okay, like, and they know that if you have to put quotas of minimums of whatever you've got to get, that it's not something that's applied evenly. Because the argument is always, well, if you weren't breaking the law, well, then it wouldn't be a problem. And it's like, well, no, I wasn't breaking the law when I was pulled over. Then they found something that they can argue is deficient with my vehicle and could be a safety issue, even though it clearly isn't because I'm driving around fine. And you pull over many of the other vehicles on the road, they're going to have a loose battery. They're going to have a fucking missing a bolt in their license plate, right?
Or a headlight went out.
It's not applied evenly across the board. It's again used selectively to punish people when I wanted to get you for this. Okay, can't do that. Okay, well, taillight's out. Gotcha. I got you. Here's a ticket. And then eventually we'll get you in the system because eventually you'll get so fucking run down and so frustrated and maybe you'll lose your license and now you got to fucking take the bus and you're pissed off about that. Maybe you're going to do something that I'll just get you for eventually then.
Well, yeah, you'll eventually drive without a license, and then I can really tag you.
Right.
Case in point, well, before I registered my bike, I was doing I got a permit, a $50 permit for 8 days. It was about the same amount of money as it cost to register my bike, so why not just get a permit, right? Yeah. She gives me an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? It's for my motorcycle. She's like, well, you fold it up and you carry it on you. I'm like, oh, I get it. So they're going to run my plate. They're going to check SGI. It's going to be cross-referenced, and they're going to know that this has been permitted, right? No, it's going to come up as unregistered. And then they'll pull you over, and you just pull that out and show it to them, and they'll let you go. And I'm like, oh, I can tell that your experience with the police is different than my experience with the police. Because if they pull me over and I say, look, I've got a permit, they're going to say, well, take your helmet off. I want to check the dot sticker on there and see if it's legitimate. And we're going to pull out a tape measure and measure your signal lights to make sure. And, oh, this fender's a little short, and I'm going to issue a ticket for this, this, and this because you wasted my time. And while I'm here, I'm going to get my money's worth or my time's worth. And she's like, so I kind of still had to drive, even though I was permitted for the week. I drove like it wasn't because I didn't want to get pulled over either way and harassed by the cops. So then I said, fuck it. I'm going to go pay the $187 to register my bike for 1 fucking month in Saskatchewan. SGI, no option but SGI. And so now I can at least get run. They check my plate. Oh, he's registered.
Yeah.
You know, and if they're going to pull me over to harass me for my helmet or my taillights or my fender or my handlebars are too skinny or too high or whatever fucking my headlight isn't up to code, which they do.
I'm talking like you even just park on the street in that 8-day period. And they drive doing their fucking check of the neighborhood to see whose license plates are up to date. So what, do you get a ticket then? Because they just write the ticket for you then.
They would probably tow my vehicle if it was parked on the street.
And then you go, oh, I've still got to pay for it. And then who pays the tow? Who pays the impound? It's a fucking... It's obviously... Who's kept safer by any of this?
Yes, whose
property is even kept safer by any of this?
I remember when I first heard that the patrol cars now had these little cameras, and they just drive down the street and scan people's license plates, and they check for any warrants, they check for any outdated plates, they check for anything that vehicle is registered to or the person that vehicle is registered to has on record, and they say ding, 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 ding. My brother got an unregistered vehicle ticket for having his truck parked outside my house during my daughter's birthday. And I'm like, what? And they were like getting ready to tow it or boot it or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull this into my driveway. And they're like, and I'm like, come on, don't. I could just pull it in my driveway. It won't be on the street. Hell, give him a ticket, but don't tow his vehicle because it was against the law for it to be parked on the street as being unregistered. This is ridiculous. And you know, and that's why I think it's funny when we.
And again, who's kept safe by any of that?
Who's kept safe?
You know, and their argument would be, well, what if somebody runs into it and then there's no insurance on it, and then, well, okay, then it'll deal with that, and I guess I'm fucked on my vehicle then. You know, like give me a ticket for that? You give me a ticket for something that's only going to affect me adversely?
Well,
okay.
Impound fees. I don't even know how much impound fees
I hope
are,
they don't
but
start
they're
doing
not
like
cheap.
a fat fuck fee. They see me just walking down the street.
Yeah,
And they're like,
yeah.
there's no way that belt can take that limit of weight.
Social
$250 right now.
social
Pull your
conscious.
pants down. I'm going to spank your
You
ass.
obviously aren't supporting our health system.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. We're living in some strange fucking times. And to sit there and to think that China is so much worse than us because...
I've changed my tune on China since the beginning of this conversation.
That's what's fucked.
It's their Mandarin.
Okay, man, yeah.
I already enjoy the food.
Well, I got charged with a, what was it? Which one was it? I think it was a weapons offense once. I got charged with a weapons
all
offense
editable.
once.
Yep.
And they dragged me in, and they did a biometric, like DNA kind of thing. They took a picture of my iris. They did my whole digital handprint. They booked me. And then I got out. I go talk to my lawyer. I'm like, what was that all about? And he's like, that's not normal. They don't normally take all that information from you for something like this, especially before the court.
Yeah.
That's some pretty fucked up shit. That can't get expunged, even though I was found not guilty. Hey, take all that information you stole from me and get it off your system. No, we won't do that. You're in the system now.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Hey, for something that you're not guilty
wasn't
of, you're
guilty.
never punished for,
Yeah.
and you still get to be fucking
The
infringed
judge
upon.
said I was not guilty.
Yeah, it's fucking bullshit. Scams on scams on scams. That's all we have to deal with.
Well, and then I love living in a country that says you're free. Enjoy your freedom within the restraints, within the box that we call freedom.
Yeah. Well, and then again, like, that's like pretty regular everyday shit that you're constantly kept in captivity by. You can't just decide to, fuck it. I'm just not going to work for a while. You know what? I got enough groceries. I got food. I'm fucking fine. Fuck it. I'm just not going to.
Yep.
No, dude, you left your car parked on the fucking street instead of 10 feet into your driveway, and now that's going to cost you hundreds, maybe thousands of bucks, depending on the scenario, and you got to go back to doing whatever bullshit you were doing now.
You also owe us back taxes for your property tax. Like, here's an example. My land. Let's say we set up a garden. We've got a wood-burning stove. We've got solar panel. I still, even if I'm completely self-sufficient, not depending on the outside world for anything, I still owe property taxes. And if I decide not to pay, I'm a tax evader, which makes me a criminal, which gives the government a right to come and scoop me up and put me in a box. That's fucked.
Off your own land.
Yep.
And then put a lien on the land.
Bought
and then
paid
they
for
sell it and
yeah,
do whatever
and
the fuck they
profit
want
from
with
it. Yeah, exactly. Whatever the case may be. Exactly. I don't want to go to work for a little while. I've saved up some money, saved up some food, but you know, I still want to drive my car. Well, is it properly licensed? Well, it's my technology. I own it. It's paid for outright. I want to use it from getting from point A to point B. But where's our cut?
Yeah.
Where's our cut? You need to pay somebody else a license to do business, to buy and sell, to trade, to use your property. It's not your property anymore. It's their property.
And none of that, and it's all imaginary. The constraints that are applied, but you don't pay a fee to do business in a town, and they take a big lock off the building that you're doing business in. You know what I mean? It's just paperwork, and then they go, okay, well, you filled it out. We got our fees. It's fine now. You go, what changed physically in the world? Nothing. Nothing changed at all. We just all agreed that this was the rule, and you're going to give us this for that, and that's going to be fine. Like, it's so yeah.
So when
transparent when you start to really look at it. You're like, oh, this is obviously not
cash
built.
grab.
It's not built to help anyone.
It's a capitalist racket cash grab that they try to re-put the money into other areas, right? Revenue raising.
Yeah.
Our studio where I do the photography and we do the kink education, every once in a while we'd have kink parties where people would stop by, right? And it had to be underground when we were doing this because officially we weren't zoned for that kind of entertainment or for that many people, right? And the landlord came at me and said, well, you need to check with the city. I don't think you can have that many people down there. And I'm like, really? Oh, okay. So when we got a new landlord and we signed on to our new lease, I went to the city and I said, okay, so this is the situation. We sometimes do group education, videography, whatever you want to call it, a bunch of people in there. What's my capacity for this space? And they're like, well, about 25 people per washroom. And I'm like, 25 people per washroom. I've got a men's and women, well, unisex, they're individual washrooms. So I have 2 washrooms. They're like, yeah, under 50 people is good. But my landlord is like, oh, your zoning doesn't allow this. But the city says your zoning does, which is right. So I told my landlord, I'm like, well, I went to the city and they said I could have up to 50 people in that space if they could fit. Well, we don't necessarily think that that's a good idea. Well, which is it? Is it the city zoning, or is it your personal
More
morality?
Karen bullshit.
Exactly.
I know the rules. I know the law. I pay taxes. You're not allowed to do this. You can't have that many people here. I know the rules. Do you, though? And then you look into it and you go through it. Of course they didn't. They're always full of fucking shit. Blowhards, idiots.
I rented a warehouse once in Warman when I was running my dancer agency. I got lots of stories like this shit. I was running a dancer agency. I rented the warehouse as a office space and practice space. So we put up some poles. We put up mirrors for the girls to practice. We did our booking upstairs. It was like, actually, it's funny because the space was used by a motorcycle club previously as their clubhouse. And I'm like, well, shit, if you're renting to these 12 bikers with their Harleys and they're drinking and they're pool playing and all that shit, you're not going to mind some dancers practicing here. So we move in, the girls do their thing. We have one party there, one stag party for a guy. He's getting married, brings some people down, some lap dances, everybody heads home. I get sit down by my landlord saying, I hear you run a strip club. I'm like, no, I think you made a mistake. We had a single party. It was a private party in our studio space. Yeah. And he's like, well, you didn't rent it as a studio space. I'm like, well, if you look, I totally did. I rented it as an office and practice space and studio space. And I'm not using it for anything that wasn't like that. He's like, well, you need to get out because I don't agree with the morality of what you're doing there. And I'm like, shitty, because you didn't write morality into my lease.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I'm like, well, I'm a vegetarian. What if I have an issue with the sausage place across the street? Can I get them shut down because of the morality of what they're doing? I disagree with their morality. Yeah. And he's like, so he had to back up because I had signed a lease and I was working within the lease. Yeah. Next thing you know, out of the blue, Warman City Hall calls me about zoning issues. Oh, the business that you're doing isn't zoned for that industrial area, so you need to move out. And I'm like, really? You're kicking me out? And they're like, well, basically, yeah. It's not zoned for office use and studio space. It's only light industrial, and you're not a light industrial business. I'm like, what's your name? I don't need to tell you my name. Who reported me? I don't need to tell you who reported me. And I'm like, so it was okay for a motorcycle club to use it as a clubhouse for the last 3 years. They move out, and when I go in there, it's all hell breaks loose, basically. Yeah. So I got run out of town.
Boy, won't anyone think of the children,
What
though?
about the children on the edge of town
Bunch
in
of
that
Puritan
warehouse?
pieces of fucking shit.
Yes.
And again, it's right near the community that had the whole fucking public outcry over the fucking pedophile Satanist ring diddling all their fucking kids, hey?
Yeah,
You
the
idiots
satanic
don't
sex
know what the
scandals.
fuck it is, but it's right up your fucking ass.
Yeah. For anybody who's not local, if you ever want a laugh, look up the Martinsville sex scandal, satanic sex scandal, where a bunch of, I guess, right-wing conservative Christian folks decided that these kids that were being molested in this daycare had to be molested by a satanic cult that infiltrated the police. There were satanic police officers involved with the sexual molestation. That all got found out to be fraud. There was abuse happening in that place, but it definitely wasn't satanic
Once
sex
again,
cult.
hit dog barks, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we can't have anything that even resembles some sort of sex business in this town because what about all the creeps we have here? You know how many fucking weirdos we have living in this town? You start running strippers out through here, every goddamn creep in the neighborhood's going to be out, and there's a lot of them.
I would love to see like the 2 a.m. Internet searches on Google from Warman. What dads look it up when the family goes to bed. Yeah, that would be an interesting one. Barnyard Follies. Yeah. Those fucking weirdos. Okay.
Just crashing servers all over the fucking place.
Oh, man, it would like scare the shit out of that town. That town didn't want pubs in their town because alcohol was against the dominant religion.
Move a little further down the road, Rosthern didn't until just recently.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I think it was Rosthern. Yeah, you couldn't buy booze there because again, Mennonite town, and they don't want that kind around here. They just want to sneak into the city and go get it when behind everybody's back
And get everything
drinking
behind everybody's
home.
back.
Yeah.
Cruise 19th and P
I love
behind
it. I
everybody's
love it
back.
just how fucking hypocritical people are with this kind of fucking shit. And it
When you
always
wear it
comes
on
out.
your sleeve, you're a bad guy. But when you hide it at 2 a.m. on your independent
Yeah.
private search engines, that's a different
Gets you
thing.
closer to God that way.
You're still righteous that way.
Flagellate yourself while you're jerking off to
Speaking of religious
Anyways.
fundamentalists,
Hey, is that red?
this is holy.
I'm gonna steal that. That's not-
So, speaking of religious fundamentalism, I read it. Well, you may know that I'm a pastor in the Universal Life Church. I am a Pastor Pat. You know, that's a thing. But
I didn't know this.
oh yeah, it's an internet thing.
love
But
it.
whatever. I
Hey,
do get
you know what? If anything's real, it's on the internet. So
I
that
know.
you're fucking absolutely a pastor from now on.
a Viking Thorson internet priest. Anyways, so I get emails from Universal Life Church, and they're very interesting because they talk about current events in spiritual life and current events, period. And one of the ones that popped up on my feed was right now the Senate in the USA is proposing a new law that women would be eligible for draft during wartime. So, like in Vietnam, where they just scooped everybody 18 to 25 and shaved their heads and sent them off to war, they can do that with women.
Well, everybody whose
now.
parents didn't have any money.
Yes, I guess that couldn't, except Trump.
Yeah.
So, and that's all roles, combat roles, officers, everything. And there's a pushback now, and I find this super interesting, right? So the pushback is coming from women that don't want to be drafted for whatever reason because they're feminists.
This is what equality looks like.
Yeah, I don't like that part of equality. And religious fundamentalists that say that it doesn't go hand in hand with traditional gender roles. So it's very interesting that you've got
two very opposite ends of the spectrum are now aligned on this thing. Look, none of us want us to have to go out there
women
and fight this
shouldn't
battle
fight
anymore.
and die for their country without consent because equality is
That is interesting.
I thought that was very interesting. So, what is it? There's the Gospel Coalition. Pastor Joe Carter wrote, "Throughout history, most men and women, even children, have recognized the wisdom of not sending mothers, daughters, and sisters into the battlefield. The pattern in the Bible is that when combat is necessary, it is men, not women, who bear the responsibility to participate in warfare. The pattern in the Bible is that when combat is necessary, it's
Just repeat it. Well, you know what, and I think if you take the religious aspect out of it, if you go, the pattern in history is
fucked.
but generally you don't send the wives and daughters to war. Generally you send the sons.
Yeah.
And occasionally some husbands or uncles or you know.
Well,
maybe
the
grandpa.
men of fighting age.
Yeah.
But that's just it. Equal rights implies equal fights.
Yeah.
So in a time when everybody's fighting for equal rights and gender, equality and recognition, and well, they also have to be prepared for the unpleasant parts of that.
Well, and they're also, it's to participate in an already unpleasant, the idea of the draft, like mandatory
it's
fucking,
gross, yeah.
we can force you into its service. That should be the end of the conversation there. It's like, well, who are we going to send? Fucking nobody. It doesn't matter what gender they are. It's like, we're not going to do that.
Well, I'm up in the air about this. Like, I disagree with the draft. I think, across the board, we're only when war is coming, we're scooping you up and sending you away.
Well,
but then there's tons of countries around the world that have mandatory military service for 2 years when you turn 18.
Well, which is different also.
Yes. So I think that's not a bad idea.
If that's what they want to do, right? If you want to have access to people who are fighting age instead of having a draft, make your mandatory service, and then it's like a part of your education. And it's because it seems to be they do the draft when they need somebody that's going to go get
fodder.
killed.
Yeah,
you're going to go
exactly.
get.
We need to load the
you're gonna be
cannons and send them off.
Whereas if it's everybody's doing it all the time, you're not necessarily in wartime when you're doing your military service, right? So you could still have if that's the positive aspect I want to have, I guess. But
what I really like,
assume it's just to get more boots on the ground.
It
right?
is, and in a panic time
Yeah.
where we need to throw bodies at this problem, as opposed to,
sorry.
well, I was going to say, these countries that say mandatory military service, if you want citizenship, you can move away. You can run away at age 18, and then you avoid your military service.
Yeah.
But think about it. If everybody in Canada had to do a year or two in service, you go through your basic training, you learn to use a gun, you're on a post at the border or whatever, then you're done. If you get invaded, every single person in that country who's above that age, men or women, knows how to defend their country.
Yep.
As opposed to an echelon of military people that know how to fight and defend themselves, protecting a whole bunch of worms, babies that don't know how to protect themselves, right? and I really support that system of mandatory military service. Well, I disagree with the draft. The draft is like, we're at war, we need to throw people at it. And
and that makes sense to me. Like a draft makes sense if it's a domestic war. Like they're like we're Canada, and all of a sudden Norway fucking invaded us. We need people to help right fucking now, and it's here. It's we're dealing with this. Drafting people for Vietnam, for example, to go fight a war in somebody else's place.
Oh,
it's
that
like,
kind of, yeah.
well, where's that sense of urgency if you're like, okay, we need everybody to round them up, and now we're going to put you on a plane and ship you to a different part of the world. And you're like, well, no, wait a minute. I thought we were defending our interests here. And you're like, no, you were doing it by getting you to a different part of the world. And I'm like, I don't know. That isn't like what the core concept of that I think is supposed to be. It's defending. We need to rally together to defend the homeland, right? Not to impose our will in other nations.
Well, I'm going to say it because I'm pretty sure it's a direct quote from Muhammad Ali, who said, no Vietnamese man ever called me a nigger.
Ooh.
So I'm not going to go fight that war.
No, fair enough.
And that's very, very valid. I'm living in a country where I'm the enemy already, and you want me to go fight your war, but you're not including me in this system? That's some pretty fucked up shit. But if somebody's coming and they're coming to your land, yeah, 100%. We need to get together. Exactly.
The Ruskies are at the back door.
But even better is if everybody was already trained and they understand what's necessary. You know, you still might be 45, but remember when you were 18 and 19, you learned how to use that rifle?
And what's interesting, too, is most of those places, they don't have rampant gun violence in it, because I think a lot of people think, well, if everybody's got military training, well, then they've got access to military weapons and they're going to use them and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it's actually kind of the opposite. Most people
respect what it can do?
They have a fucking respect for it. They have an understanding of them. And in some Scandinavian countries, it's like that shit's even kept, like they've got their militia supplies or whatever, but it's kept from when you need it. It's not just in your house to go off accidentally when your kid's fucking around and knocks it over, you know? Like, it's fucking,
what does this do?
It's an organized thing that makes more sense instead of like a half measure of, well, we'll let you guys all do your own regulated militias, I guess, you know?
Well, I just found that so interesting that suddenly there's this uproar when it's like, we don't want to get drafted. and apparently the statistic is only 29% of the eligible men are actually drafted at times of draft. Everybody else, like the other 70% or 71% for bone spurs or, got
ways
glasses,
to get around it. Yeah.
Alcoholism,
well, they have lots of
issues.
votes if you're in school or you're fucking whatever, right?
New families or whatever it is. I don't think new family counts. But
and then it almost goes like, okay, well, if you have all of those exceptions then for why you don't have to be drafted, you're just clearly pulling from one specific class of people. And, you know what I mean? You're
exactly.
you're like in
well,
certain neighborhoods we don't take from. Yeah. And it's like, no, you're not white enough, son.
Yeah, exactly.
You're still going to get to go.
So what they were saying is if only 29% of men that are eligible to be drafted are able to be drafted, then why wouldn't we double that and say, okay, 29% of the women that'll be eligible to draft? I imagine if you have psych issues or if you have children or if you have, God, that eliminates 80%. Right there.
Yeah, it whittles it down pretty quick.
Maybe 98,
physically capable.
No, just joking.
Yeah.
I have some
well, that's interesting.
Issues.
That is an interesting fucking predicament we're into now, because even the nature of combat has become so technological that it's like you could even make the argument too that you're like, well, really, it doesn't matter as long as you can carry the gun and pull the trigger, you know what I mean, or run the drone or whatever the fuck it is. The physicality aspect of it isn't such an issue.
Well, what was it that running a drone strike team? You go to work 9 to 5 in Las Vegas. You go to office. You just go down, play your little video game. You go home at the end of the day. I was at war all day, honey.
How detached.
All I did was a screen and watch something explode,
and, you know what's
and then I
fucked
walk
up
home.
about that is like you think about even World War II. The guys that would have been doing a similar job, flying fighter planes, shooting fucking people from around, shooting down other shit. They're connected directly to it.
They see
you know
it.
what I mean? They would absolutely remember the repercussions of that, and maybe even. Because I don't know how many times you shoot somebody down when you're in fucking World War II shooting people down, but if you shot down 25 people, I bet you 23 of them you remember vividly, you know? And whereas this guy, he go working like by Tuesday, you hit fucking Friday. How many civilians did you accidentally wipe out on Tuesday? Fuck, I don't know, man. It was a rough week. You know what I mean? We had 2 hospitals.
Because they've got that Nuremberg defense. Well, apparently the Nuremberg trial said it wasn't a defense, but it's been handed down from above. I'm just doing my job was the typical defense that the Nazis tried to use. And they found out that that's not defensible to say I'm just doing my job to commit war crimes. Now, these guys that go into they just sign in with their little card. They go down to their computer, PlayStation setup. Okay, we got to go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Boom. There's civilians down there. Oh, they shouldn't bring their children to a gunfight. Poof. And that's a legitimate quote from a guy who did a drone strike. And he's like, there's children there. They shouldn't have brought their children to a gunfight. Poof, and they just destroyed the entire street. And
gunfight, he considers that a gunfight?
Well, exactly.
When fucking hell rains down from above.
Yeah, all of a sudden, poof.
To people with fucking archaic weapons that are 35, 40 fucking years old.
Or they'll assassinate one guy and then, or they'll kill one guy and they wait for his funeral because they know other assets will attend the funeral, regardless of their families and their cousins and their uncles and their nieces.
Mobster shit.
Yeah, and then they
mafia
destroy the
does.
entire fucking funeral. It's not just bomb. It's like fucking exactly woof. It's they erase it off the face of the earth, and then they wonder why a country becomes radicalized. You just killed my entire family because you were trying to get Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe might have been a bad guy. Well, fuck, look at my family. I'm the black sheep of my family. If something
You're
in
the
my
Uncle Joe
past,
motherfucker.
well, if something in my past came back to
You're gonna
burn
get
me,
me-drone.
and these guys kick in the door at Christmas time and start blasting with shotguns, everybody that's at my Christmas fucking deal, that's a little extreme. I think anybody would say that's gangster shit that you shouldn't fucking be doing. Even gangsters would say that's gangster shit you shouldn't be doing. But
Christmas, man.
But it's standard operating procedure when you're doing war like that. And it's a weird thing because that stepping away, you're creating all these boundaries. You play video games, Call of Duty all the time. You're playing all these games, and then you go do it for a living. Then you come home and you play these games. Some of those video games, like Call of Duty or American Soldier, they're legitimate recruiting tools. They have, if you're interested in this, call 1-800 USA Army, right?
Yeah.
And it's insane. Recruiters going to high schools and catching kids. Hey, man, what are you going to be doing after your graduation? Showing up at graduation ceremonies. What are your future job options? You want to get a job for the government? We could provide you with education. Da, 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 da. Oh, you might lose your arms. That's okay.
Yeah,
IEDs take out legs.
Yeah, you may never sleep again because of the PTSD from the fucking horrible things you'll have to do.
Well, I was tattooing another Army guy the other day. It's funny, my job, I'm always talking with different people from different worlds. But this Army guy, he had a good point that war is no longer me shooting at you. It's me avoiding IEDs, improvised explosive devices.
Sure.
It's bombs, indiscriminate bombs that could take out like Humvees or, armored carriers.
Was he serving in Afghanistan, or did he mention?
I don't think he's done tours, but I know other guys that have gone and done tours.
So I was just saying, that seems like that's the thing in Afghanistan that you still hear about lots, is just
Pakistan,
constantly
Afghanistan,
driving around and
Iraq.
shit's blowing up.
Anywhere those, that's terrorism is the warfare of the poor, right?
Yeah.
So these guys are being trained to just be on edge all the time. And there was a period, I think it was in the Iraq conflict, pretty sure, that when an IED went off, that was a green light for 360-degree rotational fire. So anybody, anywhere around you was a target if a bomb went off.
Sure.
And so these guys trying to fight an invading force set up like an improvised explosive on the street to take out 2 or 3 soldiers, and those soldiers light up the entire street. And that was standard operating procedure. Yeah, you shouldn't have been there.
That's some medieval shit, though, right? That's how you fucking you go into village and you burn the whole fucking thing down. The next one wants this. You want what they're getting? Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
You want a bit of this?
Just to obey and fear, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, so
Wild
now they're going to
stuff.
get women to do it too. So that'll be great.
Now that everything is equal, women can be part of the mass genocide as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild. Well, fucking see how it plays out. This is not a dog I have a fight in. I'm just watching this one going, oh, well, eat yourselves.
There's that George Carlin quote I love. Actually, I just reposted it. I should pull it up. But he's like, I'm at a place in my career where I've basically given up on the human condition and the human experiment. I've given up. I've watched it run its course, and now I'm just watching. I'm almost a detached observer, and it's allowed me a great freedom to have lots of commentary on it without getting emotionally involved with it, where I could just watch what's happening and say, this is what I see. And he's like, people are beautiful. One-on-one, you can see the universe in their eyes. They're great. They're fundamentalists. They're the fundamentally beautiful, wonderful things. But you put them in groups, and they change, whether it's religion or business or
Fucking
tribes
rights, man.
or whatever. And then I lose faith in people when they join groups. And so he has taken a step back from, or had before he died, rest in peace, George Carlin, he's one of my favorite comedians. He had taken a step back from being emotionally involved with the human condition. And you listen to his stand-up, and he's so on point about what's happening in America, but he's not really that, he
doesn't have a dog in the fight.
Exactly,
He's just going, well, you
exactly.
guys see this shit that's going on here?
Yeah,
I'm not going to fuck about that side. I don't give a fuck about this side, but these guys sure give a fuck about it.
Well, and so many people call him callous and bitter, but he's just pointing out what's actually going on,
Because
right?
it hits home for them. Mm-hmm. Right? Well, that hurt my feelings, you callous prick. Mm-hmm. And well, then I guess it wasn't for you then. It was designed to make somebody laugh or think, and if it didn't do either of those things for you, I guess it's not for you.
Yeah, and like we're growing into a society that is so eager to be offended by everything. By the one thing that I read about was microaggressions. the little tiny things that are racist, but you don't know they're racist. Like when I go to an Asian restaurant and they don't give me chopsticks because they assume I can't use it, I know that they're actually being
that's a
racist.
microaggression.
Yeah, they're being racist, thinking that
guess.
I'm a Caucasian guy, so I need a fork.
Yeah.
No, my ex told me that.
Yeah.
She was Vietnamese. She's like, that's actually racism. They think you can't use chopsticks. And I'm like, so that's a microaggression. And
Well, that's what we have to take, I guess.
yeah, I know. I'm very offended by
white
it.
people in general, the worst imposing force in history, and just the most racist. And it's like fucking but sometimes they don't give me chopsticks.
Well, it's funny. I think a lot of white people like to say that we're the worst imposing force in history, but they haven't necessarily looked into Islam, the expansion of Islam, and what happened as part of Muhammad's rule, and like accept Islam or we're chopping you up, or if you accept Islam, we give you trade routes. Which one do you want? You don't want it? We torture you and kill you mercilessly, or if you do, we benefit you. Which one do you want? You can be a slave until you convert to Islam, because then we can't enslave other Muslims. Oh, you're a Muslim now? Come on out of slavery. Like that kind of weird shit. Like, so there was a lot of brown people doing horrible things in other parts of the world, but here in a colonized country, we were the
generally
baddies.
one shade, and it's no shade at all.
Generally the baddies. I'd like to say.
Fuck else we just.
What are we
talking
at? What
about?
what time are we at?
Now we're 24.
Hour
Holy
24.
fuck.
Yeah.
Hey?
When I avoid going into the apocalypse mode, I think we have good conversations.
Yeah.
It's only a
We'll get
heartbeat
there.
away.
We'll get
It's only
there.
a heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there
don't worry
eventually.
about it. Yeah, we'll be talking about it as it's ongoing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, fucking. What else do we got coming up here? Nothing that. Oh, you know what? Like, we got a show coming up September 4th.
Whereabouts?
So playing at the Feisty Goat sometime in the evening. September 4th. Yeah, so I'll maybe try and remember that a few times to mention it. If
Hopefully,
I can,
we'll
but-
get this up before then.
Hey, fucking a month. We can do it in a month. But yeah, it'd be cool to fucking go out and play some music for some people. And we got a couple of new ditties we've been working on, or the boys been working on anyways. And I'm stoked on those. So that'll be fun to go out and do that and try and squeeze in some more stand up. They're starting another one at Fox and Hounds on Thursday nights, I believe. So I think the Black Cat's got one going pretty consistently Saturdays, and then Fox and Hounds on Thursdays. So
I'm doing some
try and do
recording.
some of that.
Wrote a few new songs. Got a buddy down here.
Or Standard Bear, or
Yeah, Standard Bear
Cool.
Street Rock on Instagram. You want to look it up. We got some stuff on Bandcamp and whatnot. It's funny because I jam with a buddy of mine that I've known since high school, and he's a metalhead. So trying to play like stripped down punk rock, like Oi style, for a guy who's like, and I'm like, it just doesn't translate as well. And it's kind of like, hey man, I'm stoked that we're gonna play together, but maybe you just do the solos, or and I'll do the sloppy guitar, and you just like do. Yeah, that would be a bit better. It's interesting when I'm a control freak, and compromise is hard. Compromise is hard.
Well, it's hard with art. You
When
know
I have
what
a
mean? And you
vision
gotta-
of what you wanna do.
Fuck, exactly. And music's tough because it's hard to compromise on it, because if it's something you want to play over again, you don't want to be like, every time you do a song, be like, well, this is that one that I had to make that compromise on, and I don't like this verse.
Well-
I made the compromise on it, though,
Yeah, that's happened to me tons. And almost every band I played, I allowed that compromise to happen because I'm in a band. I never got to play that straight edge hardcore, New York or Cleveland style straight edge hardcore. And I never got to play that stripped down skinhead rock and roll punk rock stuff, because there's not a lot. Let's face it. There's not a lot of straight edge vegan skinheads in Saskatoon, right?
So few and far between out
yeah.
here.
Hey guys, you want to get together? Well, are we gonna get shit faced? No. Can we have a big barbecue after? No. So that's not gonna happen. We're pretty. And so I've had people offer to like, hey, I could do some tracks with you. I'm like, well, unless you're on board with pretty much everything I'm talking about, yeah, I'd rather just do it on my own.
Well, you fucking know what you like. Well, and you've been through the process before. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
And it's when it works, it's the funnest shit ever. When you're just vibing with a group of people, and then you guys are all got the same kind of idea for stuff, and it's working out. That's the best. Sucks fucking a mile of cock when it's not, and you're trying to get something done, and you're like, no, you're just not. And I'm like, I'm not a musician. So it's really fucking hard for me to articulate what I'm trying to get across a lot of times to actual musicians. Well, you want me to play? Well, can you do a little whittly whittly, and then a down, like fucking whittly whittly, down. Come on, bud.
Well,
I've been doing this how long? Jesus.
I played in one band, and like I thought we were gonna get like more of a hardcore vibe, and then two of the guys were into black metal, and we had a new metal guy in there, and then another guy who was like kind of into hip hop, and I'm like, this is turning kind of crazy, you know.
It's getting
This is
weird.
far from hardcore, but it turned out okay. But it was definitely a lot more extreme than I thought it was going to be, and that's cool. I guess I got to play in a black and death metal band for a while, you know, and but that's just it. I never really got to play the music I wanted to, but I know I can play stripped down punk rock pretty simply. So yeah,
Nah, that's what you like.
it's my relaxed music.
Yeah, man.
You know, not always impaled Nazarene.
Shit.
September 4th, though. You
Yeah.
guys are playing Feisty Goat.
Feisty Goat. Us and 75 other bands, I think.
Oh.
I don't know how many are, but it sounds like every hour there's a new band from
Holy fuck.
2 or 3 in the afternoon till whenever they close, I guess. So should be a fun time. They've done this a few years now. They get a bunch of bands in and usually pretty good. An eclectic crowd at a minimum, because none of the bands sound the same, I don't think. It's always a weird variety of shit, but I kind of like that too, because sometimes a little bit of a weird crowd's a fun crowd.
It'd be interesting to go to a punk show again.
Oh, man.
Haven't been to one in years, like literally.
It's fucking... When was the last... I can't even remember. Probably that last one we played, and that was a year ago. So I don't know if I've been to one since. I don't think there's been any fucking... Have I even seen any live music in the last year?
Pretty sure the last one I went to was Dayglow Abortions at Black Hat, and that was a while ago. All
Yeah.
those Turbo Yugen guys were there moshing it up, and it was a good time.
Everybody's
But
pissing in their own mouths.
yeah, sounds about right. Wee, look at me go.
Real piss in your own mouth kind of crowd. Hope everybody listened right to the very end of this one for that little
Yeah,
tidbit.
got the gold. Got the gold. No pun intended.
Yeah.
All right, so
Well-
maybe a couple weeks from now we'll do this again.
Let's do it.
Okay, peace, love, granola.
Bye.